As we inch closer and closer to game day between the Utah Utes and Texas Tech Red Raiders, what's at stake for both sides? And who has the edge in Texas Tech's offense taking on the Utah Utes defense? We're going to tell you on this Locked On Utes, Locked On Texas Tech crossover.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes and Locked On Texas Tech your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time joining this show, make sure you like and subscribe. Really excited to have Locked On Texas Tech's Chris Level back along the ride with me here. I'm JT Wistersill, and today's show is going to be a fun one. But first, we got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. College football, NFL, it's all back. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Chris, we had a ton of fun talking about this matchup on yesterday's show. And I think today, I really want to talk about what's at stake for both these teams. Before diving more into the matchup, talk about who wins, everything there. I think for Utah, really quick, Chris, this is the game. We mentioned it towards the end of yesterday's show, where if you're Utah, and you came in as the preseason favorite last year, and you're starting to earn some hype and love this year now too for what you have done so far this year and just the history of the program. Can this Utah team prove that they are here in the Big 12 right now, ready to roll? They did it last year against Oklahoma State. We thought ended up being fool's gold. They were not a contender. They were not good. They missed a bowl game. This is your opportunity. The whole world watching on Fox, a Texas Tech team that a top 3 transfer portal class in that a lot of people are very high on and think can win the Big 12. This is Utah's opportunity in a moment to say, hey, Big 12, we are here and we're ready to contend in this conference right now.
Well, I think it's very important to remind everybody, because was that one team was ranked last year in Stillwater and one team was close to being ranked. Am I right?
Oh, it was a top 15 matchup, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. And yet, boy, it's a long season.
Mm-hmm.
It is a long season. I do think, as we sit here right now, these are probably two of the top 4 to 5 teams in the league.
It's my Big 12. It's my Big 12 title game pick. This matchup again. Like
okay.
I have you did a good game here, and then I have a meeting them again. I'm really high on both these teams. Yeah, rematch.
Okay, rematch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I just think it's a mistake to it's easy to do. We get caught up in the recency bias, but it's I'm just not ready to say to cast off Kansas State and say you'll never hear from them again.
Yeah.
I just have seen too much there before where they just do this and then they end up winning 7 or 8 in a row. Iowa State is very good. I think TCU is sneaky. BYU I think could be sneaky, but I wouldn't put them in the top 4 or 5. But I was going to say Baylor. I think Baylor is sneaky. They lose to Auburn. Arizona State loses to Mississippi State. Theoretically, these are blows to your at-large resume, but you're still in it. And Kansas State, where everybody's looking, they lost to Arizona. Well, that doesn't count against the conference standings. Now they're
I forgot about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, they're that deal's a bit of a mess right now. But I do think these two fairly untested teams seem to be two teams that could have some staying power. But I mean, tell me JT, do you think you can roll through and beat? If you look at, because they've got Arizona State, there's a trip to they got to play Baylor. Talking about the Utes, they've got to play.
Arizona State comes to us, Kansas State comes to us, but we go to Baylor and Kansas to end the year late.
Yeah,
and to Provo.
Yeah, and so those are all landmines. And I will tell you, on paper, people are going to go, you're going to go into Morgantown and roll. It's a weird trip, man.
Ask Pitt.
I've done that many times, and weird stuff happens in Morgantown. And you can go win by 40, or you could end up having John Denver singing and they're burning couches, and you're going, what just happened? But having said all that, this game is important, and these are two. I think these are two contenders. Yeah, I think these two teams have some staying power, and the reason I say that is because I think these two teams are very good up front on both sides of the ball. Here's what I know. With what we don't know, here's what I know. They don't suck up front. They have depth up front. This allows you to have staying power in this league because I think you're built up front differently than a lot of other teams. So
I think it's a great point. I think one thing that is really interesting, and as you mentioned, like I'm talking about Utah, and because I do think this is a very important game for Utah to beat Texas Tech, especially because both of us, Chris, want to have a chance at the college football playoff. Maybe if we even go 11-1 in the regular season, that's going to get tougher for whoever obviously loses. Chris, you guys spent a lot in the offseason. It was a big storyline. There's a massive thing going on there. We live in an overreaction and hot take world. If you guys lose, even maybe it'll be a close game of loss, and maybe it's a 10, whatever it ends up being, how much do you think there'll be pressure and just the noise will be about, we put all this in and we couldn't even go up to a 5-7. We talk about why some of that's not like fair to say, but a 5-7 Utah team from last year and get a win. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, luckily here in Lubbock, there's a lot of alignment. Everybody's on the same page. I think they would try to tell you that they tried to control what they could, and then you have to kind of go do it. And there's programs in the last 20, 30 years that feel like they've been knocking on the door. Like in my backyard here in this state, I feel like A&M has been so talented and resourced this out and hired this coach, and they've been knocking on the door for years and years and just can't ever deliver. So it's hard. Okay, we understand that it's winning in this sport is hard. You're not guaranteed anything. I don't. It's funny. Is Joey on the hot seat? Is like he's got to win or else? I just don't see it that way. And the people, more importantly, the people that funded a lot of this, they don't see that way either. This is a big picture. We're going to kind of try to take advantage of this window and all these things, and we're just going to keep swinging. But is there pressure? Absolutely. I mean, Cody Campbell, who's kind of been the face of a lot of what they've done in the portal class, but is also trying to help schools like Tech and Utah and the Big 12 and all that and fight the Big 10 and the SEC from ruling over everything and taking all the money and all that. He's going to be at this game. He will be in attendance. And, Cody was an offensive lineman back in the mid-2000s for Coach Leach, but he's done extremely well in the oil and gas business. And but he will be here. And he was kind of at the forefront of what they were trying to do here. And he's the one that he played offensive line. He knows we got to be better up front on both sides of the ball. And that's, because he would be the first one to tell you when it was in the midst of happening, he flat out told me, I'm going to be really pissed if we don't have one of the best portal classes in the country. Because that was the goal. They knew they needed help immediately. They knew they needed, and it's all those things. So, but now it's show and tell. And now that this week feels a little bit different than when you're playing Kent State or Arkansas Pine Bluff or even an Oregon State team. So, and if you lose it, there will be plenty of people that point and laugh and say, what are you doing? But it's a long way to go, and we'll kind of get to that here in a little bit.
You mentioned the offensive line. Obviously, that's going to be incredibly important going against a Utah defense that's strong. John Henry Daly actually leads the nation in sacks right now, one of Utah's defensive end. We're breaking down the Utah defense versus the Tech offense in one moment. But first, today's crossover show is brought to you by our great friends at Mazda. With Mazda, they craft cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can make every driver you can genuinely make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And also with the all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. So, like our players, we sweat every detail at Mazda because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved when you head over and look at Mazda's inventory today. Today's show also brought to you by our great friends at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Game day between Utah and Texas Tech getting closer and closer. And especially if you're watching big noon kickoff and then rolling right into the game day, you might not have time to run out and grab something to eat. And that's where DoorDash can help you deliver. Just like it's time for this week's MVP, who delivered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. For Utah last week, it's probably Devin Dampier again for what he's able to do. You could even say a John Henry Daly, right, who leads the nation in sacks. As I mentioned, how about Texas Tech, right? I mean, it was a 50-point game. You got Morton, whoever you want to pick on Texas Tech. There's a lot of guys you could choose from for player of the week there as well, too. And just like those guys came through for Utah and Texas Tech, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday on your order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo ends November 18th. Get your streak started today. Chris, both of these teams are looking to start and strong in Big 12 play, and it's going to be a massive key for Texas Tech to be able to deal with the elements that are going to come when going against a hostile environment in Rice-Eccles Stadium. This, to me, is where it gets interesting. We talked a little bit on the last episode about this group having not played a true road game. To now be playing a true road game at altitude where it's going to be noisy and loud, especially on your offensive line, for me, if I'm a Texas Tech fan, that is a concern. How do you feel like that group is ready? And it's not NFL caliber yet for John Henry Daly, but he is a guy. He has 5 sacks. He's been really productive off the edge. And this Utah team does have some strong defensive line talent. How are you feeling about the matchup in the trenches for Tech?
And he transferred from BYU?
Yes, he did. And our other guy did too, Logan Fano.
This is wild to me. Like, everybody hates each other with this deal. And like, arguably the greatest coach in Utah history, Kyle Whittingham, yes?
Yep.
BYU grad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the whole thing is so fascinating to me because this is all new for those of us in Texas. We're used to, I could tell you a lot about TCU and Baylor and some of these private school snotty people and all that stuff. But the whole BYU and Utah thing is fascinating to me. I think that at face value, we can get into matchups and everything like that. But at face value, I think it will be difficult to run the ball if you're Texas Tech against this Utah defense.
Mm-hmm.
But because I think typically Morgan Scalley plays a lot of man coverage. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He does.
Yeah, right. And that's where I would say I really would like the matchups that Texas Tech has on the outside. And Caleb Douglas and Reggie Virgil. Reggie Virgil is one of the top receiver portal. I mean, Oklahoma and Florida State were very frustrated that they didn't add him in the portal back in December. Caleb Douglas, I think, was the second leading receiver in the conference of returning players last year behind Jordan Tyson, and we all know who that is. Coy Aiken had a 100-yard game last week, but then they also added Terrence Carter, who was one of the top tight end portal candidates, and he's been just this freakish, weird mismatch. He's like 6'2", shorter than most tight ends, but he's 250 and very fast, very athletic. And so I'm fascinated. Can Utah cover everybody? Nobody else has been able to, but that's because not everybody's been very good that you've played. And most of these guys haven't even played into the second half or but a couple of series in the third quarter. So that's where it comes down to me is I don't know if you'll be able to run it with much success. I do think that you will be able to hold up and let your quarterback play some pitch and catch, but this is where Baron Morton has to be good. Mm-hmm. You asked this, aloud, and one of the earlier things we were talking about is he good enough to go lead you to a conference championship? And this is a game where he needs to be really good, or he needs to be a plus. And now's the time. And if not now, then when? And it's not like this game is the end all be all, but he's going to have to play well. And that may be by design. That may be like, we like these matchups, and so we're going to put it in our quarterback's hands, and we're going to trust that he can deliver it, and we can win one-on-one matchups on the outside or down the seam or whatever it is, because we just don't know if we want to beat our head against the wall trying to run the football. I don't know. So that's where I'm curious. And I don't. He's this is one of the best defenses in the last 4 or 5 years, especially so at home. I think I'll throw this number out at you that I think that in the last 4 years, I think Coach Scalley's defenses are averaging giving up 15 points a game, which is top five in the country, again, with games in Salt Lake. So that's why, like, our points going to be at a premium. I mean, I just don't know really what to expect here. And I don't know if this version of the Ute defense, is it as good as it was last year, which was really good. Is it as good last year, or where are the holes, or I don't know. I guess you tell me.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn because on coming into this year, they lost so many veterans. They had key starters, like 4 of them that were part of like both Pac-12 title teams, even like the ones in 21, 22, right? All the COVID year stuff. Those guys got to stay around a little longer. So there was a lot of turnover on this roster. So I've said, hey, you lose veterans, you're going to take a step back. Well, so far, so good. Haven't played anyone, but when you haven't played anyone, you want to blow them out. I mean, you give up only 10 points at UCLA. You held Cal Poly to 9, Wyoming to 6, right? Like this Utah team, the 6 was a garbage time touchdown. Like this Utah defense has looked the part so far. But as we've also said frequently, you haven't really played anyone. This is such a massive leap up of an offense that it's going to be really fascinating to see. I've really liked what John Henry Daly has shown. He really didn't do much at all last year, but now he's had an offseason to grow and develop, and he looks like a really strong pass rusher off the edge. I think he's a guy who NFL scouts are not there to see John Henry Daly, but he could surprise them. Not a first-round pick, but a mid-round pick guy that he's been really productive. Utah's defensive tackles, they lost their top 3 D tackles from a year ago, and they've already had an injury at that position as well, too. So how is that defensive tackle room going to hold up on the interior? Who else can get pressure? Really like the linebackers that Utah's. Lander Barton, Jonathan Hall, Leavani Demooney, all some veterans that have been able to produce a lot for this Utah team. Secondary, retooled pretty well. Did have a season-ending injury at a safety spot, but that safety, Rabbit Evans, had missed a couple other games as well, too. So secondary has looked really good and strong. We talked about Smith Snowden on offense yesterday. I think he's one of the best corners in the Big 12 Conference, too, and Elijah Davis does a good job on the outside as well. So I do think this Utah defense is good, Chris, but it is so fascinating. Yesterday, we talked about how Utah's offense wants to be in third down and short situations. I think Texas Tech's going to be comfortable and not comfortable, but they're okay if they're third and long because they're going to trust and like the talent they have on the outside. And I can't wait to see who's going to win those matchups, because even if Utah plays good coverage, I saw Morton had one throw down the sideline for a touchdown last week. It was great coverage by the Beavers, but there's nothing you can do when that throw is on the money.
Yeah, and that's, and I think that Joey McGuire has shown he's not as crazy as like Dave Aranda is with this, because like what Baylor's doing on 4th down attempts is just I don't know if it's insanity or he's just way ahead of the curve. But I think that, sometimes and Texas Tech will come into this game as an underdog, and that factors into their analytics and the way that they approach the game. They may be more aggressive on 4th downs as well, because if they like those, it's just you got to win one-on-one matchups. And if you trust your quarterback and he's got to put the ball up there for, because these receivers, like Reggie Virgil and Caleb Douglas, they're 6'3", 6'4", Coy Aikens 6'3", and obviously John Carlos Miller is about 6'5", and Terrence Carter, the tight end, and we mentioned he's not as tall as your typical tight end, but he's fascinating to me because if you put a linebacker on him, which is typically what some teams do, he's just so much faster. And so I don't know. I am curious internally in that I wonder what they have held on to and what they haven't shown, because most of these guys haven't played, like I said, into the second half in any of these 3 games. Your offensive line hasn't played into the second half in a lot of these games. And there's some, as you and I touched on, there's been some tinkering going on there with the offensive line. It's set, but not quite set. And can they hold up? Can they move people? I've often asked this aloud. Can Texas Tech run the ball when they want to? And when the opposition knows we know what's coming, we're going to try to stop it. Last year, the answer was yes. This year, I just don't know. And that's one of the you mentioned injuries. That one of the key key additions to this portal class was a USC running back, Quentin Joyner, who I think was going to be the kind of the do-it-all guy, 5'10", about 215. I saw him enough in August. It's like, oh, yeah, this is going to be really good. And in the second scrimmage, he ended up hurting his ACL. So your running back room, it looks a little bit different now. And it's I don't want to say like a weakness, but is it a question mark? Yeah. I mean, I think especially in games like this, you've got talent there, but it's just, depth and proven experience. No. So talent, yes, but proven experience. No. So anyway, this is interesting. I think for Texas Tech to win this game, Baron Morton will have to have a good to really big day. I just don't know if I know how to define that just yet on what it will take. What do you got to score? 24? Is that enough? You got to score 27. You got to score 31. You got to score 28. I mean, you got to score 40. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take here, but I think a lot will be on the quarterback for Texas Tech that day.
I agree. And Utah does as well. And they're going to try to throw a lot of bodies at him as well, the blitz game. I can promise you that. So how's Morton going to handle it? Who's coming out on top too? We're going to tell you in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes and Locked On Texas Tech is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I mean, for example, you can identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment and allocates and discovers forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, when you head over to Monarch Money today. Chris, I am so fascinated by one of the things you mentioned too. Not only is this a newer offensive line that I mentioned, but for Texas Tech, but they have not gone through a full game together. So I also wonder for that a little bit about, especially offensive linemen when it comes to their conditioning, playing in the altitude when you also have to be communicating strong, because Utah, Chris, I don't know how much you've gotten to see yet. They will bring some crazy blitzes your way. And if your communication is not on cue, I think the concern for Texas Tech would be how that end zone interception happened for Morton last week. You get similar plays like that where there are free rushers who come through because Utah is doing all kinds of just crazy stuff up front. Do you think Tech is ready for this wild Morgan Scalley blitzes and everything that they're going to try and throw at Morton?
I know that they had a healthy respect for what Trent Bray did at Oregon State. Oregon State came into that game. They led the country in third down conversion rate. They'd only allowed 3 of 21 on third down. And talking to Coach Leftwich, they just had a very healthy respect for the scheme that Coach Bray would exercise on third downs because it was confusing. It's just meant to kind of like come and going. We may let you need 8, we may let you get 6, and we're dropping you right there. I mean, just all these things. So, and I think that Mac Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, that's also what's interesting here. There's 2 new play callers here, 2. Mm-hmm. And was Mac Leftwich ever in consideration for the Utah job? Yeah.
They wanted him. They wanted him over Jason Beck. I think it works out well for both parties because I don't know if you get Beck, if you get Damp here, but they wanted Leftwich. I could tell you that without a doubt.
Because the first choice was Ben Arbuckle.
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
that's Utah right. Insider too over here, by the way, Chris. You're pretty cute.
Well, because Ben Arbuckle is from he's like originally from like about an hour from where I'm sitting right now, and in Canyon, Texas, and then he obviously the connections with West Texas A&M and Canyon and all that stuff. It's just outside of Lubbock a little bit, and so it was fascinating because I knew when Mac Leftwich came here on his visit. You were curious, okay, was he going to go visit Utah or Texas Tech? And it was like, okay, everybody needs an OC. Who's left holding up? But yeah, I think it worked out for everybody involved. There's just no doubt. So I think, but that's we forgot to almost get into that. But having said that, these are two new play callers going through their first, game in a conference game, in a big game, and
legit
all the things.
Competition.
Yes, against legit competition. I think that is worth mentioning as well, and kind of curious just how they get conservative? Do they get really aggressive? Do they bring a bunch of gadgets into the game? Who knows, right? So I don't worry about the altitude. I thought that the game in Wyoming, which is the highest foot above sea level, I thought that would be a big thing. I think Coach McGuire, he had everybody, including those of us on the broadcast crew, drinking beet juice and having these beet chews because it's supposed to expand your arteries and it lets more or blood vessels, whatever, and it lets more oxygen come in and it negates a lot of that stuff. When I was up there, Wyoming was just better at the end. There was nobody that was too tired or out of breath or whatever. The environment at Rice Eccles may be very daunting, but I think there's a lot of environments here. This will come down to who's better than the other guy, who executes, who wins those one-on-one matchups, whose quarterback is better, who's aggressive versus who's conservative, who makes a kick versus who doesn't. I mean, that's a
good one, Chris. Utah's kicker last week, I'm actually very concerned about that. True freshman kicker for Utah. He was 1 for 4 in the first half. 2 of them he missed. 1 of them was blocked. If this game comes down to the kicking game with that true freshman, and they nicknamed him Legzilla, I think a little prematurely for the true freshman. That is a concern for Utah. I think is the field goal kicking if it comes down to that.
So you're telling me that Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys is not playing for the Utes? Yeah,
he is in practice apparently. That's why they called him Legzilla. But I don't know why you get that nickname when you can't do it in the game yet. That's the thing that's wild to me about that. But anyways,
yeah, because the only other time I've heard a nickname for a kicker was this past weekend, and they were calling Brandon Aubrey the serial kicker. I was like, okay, this is too much. This is enough. But yeah, the guy made like a 64-yarder to tie the game or whatever. So it's crazy. And keep in mind, JT, that what was the stat last year that you mentioned all the 1-score games that Utah was in? That's what this league is. This league is going to be, with 5 minutes to go. I mean, typically, I want to say that it was 72% of the league games that were played were like 1-score games, which is 8 points or fewer in one possession. I mean,
that's
last year. Yes. So you're darn right. Your kicker could come into it. And Texas Tech has got a kicking competition going right now, and neither guy has flinched. Other than one of them missing an extra point in a blowout in the first game. And it was like 60-0, and he just kind of doinked an extra point. But that's really the only negative thing we've seen. So, because I've asked aloud here, okay, you're down 2 with 22 seconds to go, and you're kicking a 42-yarder to win it. Who exactly are you trotting out there? Because I don't know which one it is. It's Stone Harrington or Upton Bellenfant, who was also part of the transfer class. So anyway, it's interesting you mentioned the kicker thing because I probably feel better. I think both guys are capable. They haven't missed anything to speak of other than the 1 extra point, but it's still a lot to a lot of pressure, a lot of environment, a lot of atmosphere, a lot of meaning and all that stuff, which hasn't really been the case for any of these kickers just yet.
And that's kickers. They're all mental. And it's like you have a true freshman in there on big noon kickoff, and all the eyes are watching this loud, crazy stadium. Like all these people screaming at you, even if it's some of the other kickers for Tech. Like you mentioned, there is a lot of pressure on there. And I do think, as we've said, neither team is done in the Big 12 title race if they don't win this game here. This league is too crazy. It's too unpredictable, Chris. Like both these teams will be fine. But there is a lot at stake here, and I'm really excited to see how this game is going to play out. Chris, I'm ready to say it as we stand here right now. I have Utah winning this game very narrowly. I think this is a fantastic game. I think Utah being at home, I think Texas Tech, some of those transfer portal pieces, first game on the road, Rice-Eccles Stadium environment, even though it's early, I think that because it's their first road game, Tech is going to make some mistakes, and I think Utah is going to be able to capitalize on some of the extra penalties and mistakes that happen. I have Utah winning an incredibly close game, 28-27. I think it's going to be a big noon thriller to start our Saturday. Devin Dampier just makes a few more plays. The Utah offensive line excels. They get some pressure on Morton, ends up being the difference in this very narrow Big 12 showdown. I'll go Utah 28-27. Who's winning, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not giving. I do the broadcasting. I'm not giving you a prediction here.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Mr. Neutral. That's right.
Yeah, I try to keep it professional.
How about that?
I've told you what I thought. We're curious about. I'll be interested to see if we get any big picture takeaways after this game. I will say before we wrap up here that this is going to be a blow for whoever doesn't win it. However, and it probably will be a boost to the winner, but it's a long season. I go back to the top 15 matchup in Stillwater last year, and boy, you neither team was anywhere near the top 15 last year as the season rolled along. But you've been to Vegas before, right, JT?
Of course, yeah. It's only 6 hours from Salt Lake.
Okay, so when you're in Vegas and like, man, I think I could just walk over there down to that hotel. I could see it from here, and then you end up walking it, and it's like the desert. It's like 108 degrees, and you're like, God dang, that's a long ways. It sure looked like it was really close. Or you can just hop on the monorail or the cab and like just take the easy. The winner is going to hop in a cab. The loser is going to take the long way here. But you can still get to where you want to go. It's just that the loser here is really, a lot of their margin for error is just gone. You can afford one more loss, maybe afford one more loss. Maybe you can't, but you're going to have to get on a roll from here on out. Like, I think 8-1 gets you into the title game. I do think 7-2, you're in the thick of it. But you may miss out on some tiebreakers based on who actually was that beat you and all those things. Because what was it? Colorado and BYU both last year were 7-2 in the league, and it wasn't good enough. And like Texas Tech was 6-3, and had they been 7-2, they would have made it in. But at 6-3, they were like in sixth place, right? And 6-3, yeah, exactly. So that's why. And maybe this year's different. Maybe this year's different, but maybe somebody's good enough to go 9-0. I don't know, but this is a big one, and that's all the way around. But both teams still have a lot of meat left on the schedule, and your whole conference schedule still to go. So, if you win it, feel really good about it because you accomplished something, and you got a little margin for error and a little equity in your back pocket. But if you lose it, you got to bring it every single Saturday going forward, or you may get left out here. So
you mentioned earlier just not giving up on Kansas State yet. I'm not going to sit here and I don't see Kansas State in Arlington right now, but I'll say this is because Kansas State beat last year's Kansas where it comes down like they're out of the race. They don't even make a bowl game, and then they're just slaying giants. They're beating Colorado, BYU, Iowa State. I can absolutely see that for Kansas. I can see that for a lot of teams, and the goal for Utah and Texas Tech obviously is not going to be that team, and it's going to be just so exciting. We finally get an even football matchup to talk about on Saturday. Chris, you'll be there on the call. I hope you enjoy Rice-Eccles Stadium, my friend. It's going to be just a big noon atmosphere, everything around there. There's so much excitement around this game. I can't wait to kick it off. Thank you so much for coming on, man. This is a blast recording these shows with you.
Well, JT, I appreciate you. Were very kind to host us. Gracious as always. And so we'll talk to each other next time. Good luck to the Utes, except for this Saturday. I'm sure you're saying the same thing about the Red Raider faithful out there. But man, this is fun to do, fun to chop it up, and glad we have meaningful sports and a relevant game nationally. This isn't going to happen in this league just a ton. This is one of them. Lean into it. We're all fighting for relevancy here. No matter what side of this battle you're on, you're fighting for relevancy here. And there was a time when you're like, what's the future look like for my league, my institution, my football program? Where exactly we got going? But here's one that gets dropped in your lap, so it should be a lot of fun.
It should be. I mean, hey, College Game Day is already trying not to give us meaning, right? They're going to watch a 1-2 Florida team rather than coming to Salt Lake City. But what can you do?
Of course they are.
Of course
they are. Yes, that's right. It's in the old SEC contract.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They genuinely do go to more big like SEC games now since that all kicked in. But that's a whole nother conspiracy show. That's a Big 12 squad show topic at some point. Thank you guys for listening to Locked On Utes and Locked On Texas Tech. That's going to do it for our shows today. But we're still coming at you. We've got a full week of game prep to keep it rolling. Chris, it'll be a lot of fun there. Thanks again for coming on.
Hey, keep hope alive, man. Appreciate it.